We're taking an important step right now in marketing step by step, and we're moving into section 3, which is marketing strategy. So hopefully, as you can see, we're starting out more general and we're becoming more and more specific. We started with the kind of the biggest view that we could take, the perspective of the mindsets. Then we narrowed into marketing psychology and learned about how human beings think, how we behave when we have needs, how we make decisions. Now we're going to talk about marketing strategies, and this is going to be our bridge into the real world. We're going to start learning techniques that we can use to actually create the marketing communications, documents, videos, designs, and messages that we will use to go and attract and convert customers. The strategies that we're going to be using here are some of the most important techniques that I've personally developed and that I use in my own business. In these next sessions, we're going to do things like create our customer avatar. We're going to become even more specific about what they need, how they communicate, the words that they use. And then toward the end of the program, we'll get into marketing action steps, and we'll learn how to build specific marketing campaigns, marketing pieces, sales letters, videos, websites, etc. So this is session 6, creating your customer avatar. The customer avatar. If you combined all of your customers into one customer, what would they be like? What are the commonalities of all of your customers? Who are they? How old are they? Are they male or female? It's important to list the commonalities that your customers have. As you build out your customer avatar, continue to find the particular commonalities that make your customers uniquely similar. Include only those commonalities that have meaning and value, and discard the irrelevant information. I first started teaching the concept of the customer avatar in my Altitude business training, which was a very high-end business training that I did for business owners that wanted to learn how to grow their business from startup up to the $10 million per year level and beyond. This program was very expensive. It was $10,000 to attend the live training, but this particular kind of strategy here, creating the customer avatar and then using this as a tool to create marketing, was a real innovation that folks really seem to like, and they've gotten a lot of value out of it. And I keep hearing over and over and over that this is one of the most valuable marketing tools that people have learned from me. So when creating a customer avatar, what I'd like you to do is imagine that you've taken all of your customers, all of your prospective customers, let's say there are 1 million of them, and you could put them together into a room, and you could take all of the things that they have in common uniquely, that make them good customers for your product or service, and you could combine just those unique aspects of your customers together into one person that would act as a sort of face or avatar to be your idealized customer. What would they be like? Now keep in mind, we're only targeting the aspects of your customers, the parts of them, the traits, the demographic and psychographic commonalities. We're only targeting those that make a difference. Okay, so if you put 100 humans in a room and you say, okay, what do these people have in common? You could be thinking of it generally and saying, well, these 100 people all have skin. Okay, but let's say that I'm creating a product to teach people how to lose 20 pounds of belly fat. And I said, okay, well, what do these 100 people have in common that's relevant or that's unique and that's important? And you might say, well, they have between 15 and 30 pounds of belly fat, and 85% of them are female, and over 80% of them are past age 40. Okay, now we're getting to commonalities that matter, or differences that make a difference. Another way to think about it is, imagine that you made a list of 100 different traits that human beings could have. Okay, just 100. And we humans have a lot more than 100. But let's just say that we made a list of 100. Were they male or female? Were they adult or were they child or adolescent? Were they under 21 or over 21? Did they have a college education? Do they not have a college education? Are they happy or are they sad? Do they have high self-esteem, low self-esteem? Are they high IQ, low IQ? Do they have an income over $50,000 or under $50,000? Okay, we could start going through the list of all of the things that kind of are typical of humans. We could kind of break them out into groups. Well, let's say that we came up with 100 of these various characteristics. And maybe we made a big grid, almost like we were making a giant spreadsheet. And we listed them all the way down the side. Okay, so we made 100 rows with these 100 characteristics. And then what we did is we took our 100 people that we had in the room and we listed them across the top, and we went down the list and we made an X where each of these people had one of these characteristics. So maybe person number 1 is an adult, so we put an X in the adult category, and maybe they make more than $50,000 a year, so we put in an X in the more than $50,000 a year category, et cetera, et cetera. Well, you'd have a big spreadsheet, and you'd be able to look at this, and from the X's and the patterns, you'd be able to see what these 100 people had in common. Now, if you had 100 people and 100 characteristics, that would be 10,000 boxes that were on this spreadsheet. Okay, that's kind of intimidating. But that's really nothing compared to 1 million people that you might be looking at. And maybe you're looking at thousands and thousands of potential characteristics, because we humans have all kinds of weird things like eye color and whether our fantasy is to be a higher status person or whether our fantasy is to be someone who is someone that's loved by lots of people and admired, for example, right? Or someone that's in power versus someone that accomplishes goals. There are all kinds of ways we can slice and dice this. So if you imagined a big giant grid that had millions and millions of squares in it, and you had to go through and just put X's inside of those squares where your particular customers had the trait that makes them a good prospect for you, which squares would they fill in? In other words, how could you tell that someone was a good prospective customer for you? Well, we've learned a lot of the ways here by seeing what their fears and frustrations are, what their wants and aspirations are, diving deeper and getting even more and more specific, talking to them and asking questions. Well, as you list all of the traits that your customers have in common, and then you imagine combining them all together into one person, now you're creating what I call your customer avatar. Again, including only those commonalities that have meaning and value and discarding the irrelevant information. Now, when you create your customer avatar in your mind and you start writing down a description of them, it's not going to be a description of a regular, normal person. Okay, you're not going to say, this is a Caucasian female that's 5'6" tall and 130 pounds, because that's general. That would be a description for anyone. You're going to be describing only those things that make them a good prospect. So you might say they're female, but then you'll start saying things like female over the age of 40 and under the age of 60, who has between 15 and 30 pounds of extra belly fat, is specifically afraid of getting heart disease, cancer, and having a stroke in the next 20 years if she doesn't lose weight. Also is particularly afraid of losing her spouse because she feels unattractive. Okay, now we're starting to get into specific enough fears and frustrations and wants and aspirations that if you list out 20 or 30 of these, you're going to create a character or an avatar that's a really interesting and unique person to talk to. Now, here's the key. As you build out your customer avatar and you start to add very specific and meaningful characteristics, they can be physical, emotional, mental, they can be fears, frustrations, fantasies. As you build these out, in your marketing campaigns, in your marketing pieces, and ultimately in all of your communication, you're only going to want to talk to these characteristics that make a difference. So for example, if you have a woman who's between the ages of 40 and 60 and she has 15 to 30 pounds of belly fat, you're not going to want to talk to all people. You're not going to want to talk to men. You're not going to want to talk about driving to the store. You're not going to want to talk about shoes. What you are going to want to talk about is what it's like to be a woman between the age of 40 and 60 who has 15 to 30 pounds of belly fat. You're only going to want to communicate on those channels that are meaningful and unique to your customer avatar. Now, as you keep building out your customer avatar, you'll add more and more specifics. You'll interview your customers. You'll find more and more commonalities. And you'll get so clear about your customer avatar that you'll think of them as a real person. I recommend that you give them a name, in fact, which I do often when I'm creating them myself. And once you've gotten them to the point where you can see them as a person, you've given them a name, and they have enough commonalities that you can see and talk just on those channels, communicate just on those wavelengths, now you can create marketing that speaks to all of your prospective customers without breaking rapport, without them feeling like they're not the one that you're talking to, and most importantly, with each of them getting the feeling like you have created your message, your marketing, your advertisements, your education, your products, just for that one individual person. You see, when you find the commonalities of your customers, you find out those specific, meaningful, unique aspects that they all share in common. From their perspective, when you only talk about those things, you're only talking directly to them. What most marketers do is talk at people in a group, assuming that they're listening all at once. They even say things like, "To all you women out there who would like to lose weight," right? That does not sound specific. It doesn't sound particular. It sounds like I'm one of a big group that you're talking at. On the other hand, when you say something like, "When I was 47 years old, I had 25 pounds of extra belly fat, and I was worried that I was going to get cancer, heart disease, stroke. I was worried that my partner was going to leave me, find me unattractive, and I was very depressed." Now, right there, I sound like I'm talking about myself, but if I understand my customer avatar and I understand that they also would be very close, like there's overlap with every single thing that I said, the more things that I say, the more they're going to say, "This sounds like that person's talking about me. They sound like me." And it sounds like it was made just for them. So, build your customer avatar, go deeper and deeper. Now let's talk about the voice of your customer. Different people have different ways of communicating with each other and using language. Computer geeks communicate differently from fashionistas, who communicate differently from car guys. So what's the voice of your customer? Your avatar's unique language. Down at the ground level, your customers are using specific words and phrases that have unique value to them in the context of their unique needs. Pay attention, listen carefully, and reflect regularly to pinpoint these power words and phrases to use when creating your marketing. And ultimately, what you want to do is create a dialogue with your customer avatar. As you develop your marketing campaigns, as you initiate and develop a mental dialogue with your customer avatar, mentally connect with them on a human level and talk to them like you would talk to a friend. Now, hopefully you can see what's going on here. What I'm trying to suggest is that most marketing is broadcast out like someone standing on top of a hill, yelling at the top of their lungs, saying, "I've got good stuff. Come and buy it. My stuff is really great. You should invest in it. My products are high quality. You should come and give me money for them." And this is what it sounds like to most people. Okay, it's just a drone. It goes right in one ear and right out the other. Most signs that businesses put up outside, most websites, most television ads, they just drone on in the background and we don't even hear them. They just look like visual, auditory, mental clutter to us. On the other hand, if you can figure out who your customer is specifically, you can figure out their fears and their frustrations individually. You can climb inside of what it's like to be them to the point where you actually start feeling the feelings they feel, making the pictures that they make. You can get their unique language because you've listened to them, you've talked to them, you've learned the words that they use, the phrases that they use when they describe their fears, frustrations, wants, and aspirations. Instead of it just being another annoying marketer or salesperson who's trying to sell them something, who's trying to get them to buy something that they don't need, who's trying to sell them something that they're trying to sell to everyone else, you start to sound like a trusted advisor, like a friend who understands them. You sound like you're entering into the conversation that they're already having inside of their own mind. And the furthest extent you can take this is when you actually script out the dialogue that you have with your customer. You script out what it would be like to sit down and have a conversation with them on a human level and talk to them and have them talk to you like they would talk to a friend. And when you have done the reflection and research to understand how human psychology works, when you have interacted with your customers, you've practiced in your mind imagining what it's like to be one of them, when you've learned the words, the phrases, the commonalities that they have, when you've connected all of the dots and you've actually created an image or a customer avatar that represents those unique needs, those unique fears and frustrations and wants and aspirations that your customer has, then you can literally create a conversation with them that feels and sounds to them like it's one-to-one. And this is very powerful and it's very influential. So let's do an exercise now and create your customer avatar. Okay, so take out your exercise that says creating your customer avatar at the top. In order to best persuade a large number of people to buy your product or service, you must develop a voice or communication style and sequence that speaks to each prospective customer in a personally motivating way. Start by creating a customer avatar or a mental image of a person who is a combination of those highly individual characteristics that make up a good prospective customer. Then script the communication sequence with them from the customer's point of view. Again, from their point of view, not from yours. So answer these 3 questions to complete this exercise. First, what are the defining characteristics of your prospective customer, with focus on those that are specific just to this group? Next, What are the common themes, stories, and phrases that your customer uses to describe their challenge and their solution? Okay, with a particular focus on the emotional hot buttons, those words that have a lot of meaning, those phrases and stories that have a lot of meaning, those fantasies that have a lot of meaning. And then finally, if you had to script out your dialogue with your customer avatar from first meeting all the way to purchase, how would it go? So if you had to script out the dialogue with this customer avatar from the first meeting all the way to the purchase, how would it go? Pretend you're sitting down and interacting with one human from their perspective. They were describing it. How would the interaction go that led from first meeting all the way to purchase? Complete these 3 questions. Create your customer avatar and your dialogue script. And then I will see you in the next session of Marketing Step by Step.